want to go on a vacation and you want to do it on a budget. Perfect, so do I. Whether you are traveling solo, with a family, or with friends, use some or all of these tips to help you plan the perfect vacation within your budget. Hi, I'm Sabrina. Welcome to Love Looks Logic. And today I'm going to show you my timeline and method for planning a vacation. So let's get right into the video. Now going in, I almost always have a time frame in mind. And as I create a budget, I absolutely have to keep these three big ticket items in mind: transportation, accommodations, and food. I'm usually still undecided on a location at this point, so we need to pick a destination, and I like to do this about 3 to 4 months out. Since our time frame is in April, I'd rather explore the city rather than the beach. With that, we need to pick a destination that has a great metro system, because getting around from one attraction to the next will be super cheap, convenient, and navigation should be fairly simple. So let's do a little research on this. I'm just gonna use Google to find out the best metropolitan cities in Europe that have a great transportation system. Looks like our top picks are Copenhagen and Prague. I can reach them from Germany by train, so a plane isn't truly necessary at this point. Now that we have some prospects, we can now begin constructing our budget to help us figure out what fits best. For the duration of this trip, I would like this to be over a 4-day weekend. That will give me about 2.5 days to maximize the time in the city. Keeping everything else in mind, I'm actually okay with paying for just 3 nights in a hotel. So let's start weighing out the best mode of transportation for each. You need to value your time just as much as you value your money. Because this is a short trip, I have to consider time gained or lost as I travel. Think about how that extra time during your travel day can actually be utilized, whether it's going to a cool restaurant or catching a nighttime attraction. So all these things I'll keep in mind as I utilize the OMIO app to figure out which mode of transportation is the cheapest. Looks like Prague is cheaper, just as I figured, using the train, but it's going to take about 10 hours of travel each way. So when I first got here to Germany, I'm told never to take more than 2 transfers on the Deutschbahn. I actually vlogged our last train travels to Berlin using the Deutschbahn, and honestly, I don't think it could get any worse than that, okay? So if you haven't seen that vlog, go check this video out after you're done watching this one. The way that the trip was set up is very much how we're gonna set up a trip in this video. Back to navigating OMIO. You never wanna shoot yourself in the foot in between transfers by giving yourself a window less than 10 minutes to navigate a train station. Unless you already know the lay of the land, you really need to remember changing platforms from one train to the next could take you some time to find, let alone navigating crowds. We will definitely be keeping our luggage light, so if we need to pick up our bag and run, we can do that. So turns out this trip is actually $74 for my daughter and I, which is about 71 euros round trip. That's not bad at all. So let's compare this place with Copenhagen. I am taking note that one leg of this trip is actually the equivalent of our round trip tickets to Prague. I feel like that's enough to make a decision, but we'll keep digging just to make sure we have all the data and we can make a decision from there. Okay, so looking at this itinerary, the most cost efficient option getting back is actually going to take us 11 hours with 2 transfers, and the total for my daughter and I turned out to be $165 or 157 euros. That's not bad either, but let's do some more digging. So since we're still building the budget, we need to see which location has good rates during this time frame for a hotel, because that is our next biggest expense. I like to plan this at about the 3-month mark. I do like to go in between choosing Airbnbs and hotels. If our stay were longer, I'd prefer an Airbnb to make sure I can go to a grocery store and cut down on some of my food expenses. But since this is a shorter stay, I prefer a hotel, and nothing fancy, honestly. We are maximizing our time in the city for 2 whole days. So we really just need a clean place to put our bags down, lay our heads, take a shower, and get some peaceful and uninterrupted rest. I'll use Google Maps to compare Copenhagen and Prague so we can finally make a decision on where we're going. Let's start with Copenhagen. The OMIO app got us going to Copenhagen Central Station. So I like to look for a hotel that's not a long walk from the train station. So we're choosing convenience in any way possible. So it looks like Copenhagen is actually on the expensive side for hotels, y'all. I don't like it. If I keep the budget for around 130 per night, that'll be around 124 euros. And I'm mostly seeing a lot of hostels within this range. If I were a solo traveler or maybe traveling with friends, this would be considered, but hostels are just not ideal for me and my daughter. I found a couple of hotels in the vicinity, the Savoy Hotel and Hotel SCT Thomas. Both have great reviews and look decent, but after clicking away to make some reservations, the prices hiked up between 10 and 20 euros. If I were to go with Hotel SCT Thomas, which is the most reasonable of the two, I'd be over my limit by about 45 euros in 3 days, which isn't bad, but rolling that into our train tickets, we're already sitting at 592 euros. And we haven't even gotten around to the food expenses just yet. So I'm not really comfortable with this price. Prague has a lot of beautiful options within walking distance of the main Prague train station. I found Hotel Ostas Praha, which is beautiful and bright. It's around 93 euros a night, which only hiked up a few dollars with Agoda, and after a few clicks, the price is still pretty consistent at 108 euros. Looking at Hotel Prokop Square, it too is beautifully designed. I chose to book directly with the hotel, and it looks like there actually is no availability for this place. So Hotel Ostas Praha is the best move yet. That puts our current expenses at 395 euros. Looks like we're going to Prague, y'all. So now we can zero in for the remainder of our planning. Food. A part of my food budget can depend on our accommodations. If we were doing an all-inclusive, then that's nothing we would have to worry about. But in this case, we actually chose a hotel that has breakfast already wrapped into the pricing. So that's one less meal to worry about. This eliminates the question of how much will breakfast cost us per person per day, and if that breakfast fee is equivalent to a local cafe nearby. I like to keep the meals 2 a day with a midday snack, because a midday snack wouldn't cost us that much. As we wander around the city, we can always plan to stop at a convenience store or a local cafe to get, I don't know, a carb and something to drink, just to hold us over until the next meal. So let's say no more than 5 euros per person per snack, and we will limit our dinner bill to 30 euros a night, which I believe is more than enough. Now that puts our food budget at 110 euros for the entire trip, and I'd say that's pretty good. Our overall expenses is now at 505 euros. The 5th part of planning is figuring out what we'll do in the city. So with there being no big difference in the time zones between Prague and Germany, we can plan accordingly. I like to skim a few blogs just to identify some attractions we should visit during our stay, since I know absolutely nothing. And then next, I'll create a list in Google Maps and go from there. After making my pins, the highest prices I saw were around 15 euros per person. And I know some of these prices had children prices, so that also helps in the budget as well. If we squeeze in a park, which is usually free, we can do a church or a museum for both days. We'd only be looking at about 35 euros a day for attractions, and that's leaving room for taxes. I think that's pretty generous, and we'll still have room to flex if we make the zoo an entire day trip. As it stands right now, we now have an overall expense or budget of 580 euros. So the final step in planning our vacation, and also a lesson learned from my last trip, is we need to know what regional transportation looks like and how much it'll cost us per day. I did take note of the several system Prague already has. I noticed trams, trains, and bus stops as I perused through Google Maps. But the best way to get to more information on the transportation system is to actually use the directions tool. So in Google Maps, you would plug in 2 local locations and use the train icon to explore your public transportation options. From there, you would scroll down and click the link for more information on the Prague integrated transport. After researching, you can see that kids under 15 are free and adults will be around 5 euros per day for a 24-hour pass. I'll need 2 of these, which will bring our overall budget to 590 euros total, which is a little over 600 US dollars, or $617.16 to be exact. All right, everybody, so I think we really did good with planning this trip and creating a budget. I do not plan on buying any additional clothes to wear on this trip, but if you plan to do that, remember to roll that up in the budget, okay? Because that counts. So that concludes this video. I really hope you enjoyed and found it helpful for planning your trips for this year or next year. Either way, please like, share, and subscribe to join the L3 tribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.